finding ourselves threatened by an organization that is thriving on its lack of organization. It is amorphous, and it is everywhere, and it has made borders almost meaningless. It makes national currencies unimportant as finances are distributed globally to fund the activities of those who are working against us. It has made sanctuaries in places where nations are underprepared to deal with the challenge. It has contributed to a global chaos that is simply unprecedented in our experience. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that the challenge of dealing with this rests on your shoulders, because it is the kind of communication that this gathering promotes that is going to ultimately resolve this on a global basis.
This is the third Foreign Military Attaché Conference that we've hosted in the context of a project which we call Sovereign Challenge. And this conference has been particularly full. We've had about 110 senior foreign military officers from over 70 countries talking about common issues of terrorism and how terrorism affects all their lives and their countries, and how terrorism violates the sovereignty of all of their nations.
Unless we have common databases, unless we have joint training, we do joint operations, we will fail. So I believe that Sovereign Challenge has now become the ideal platform for a number of governments to work together, to strategize, and to develop common practices to fighting terrorism and extremism.
This conference is unlike any other meetings that we have here in Tampa or that we attend as professionals. This is a place where the international community comes in and you run the conference. The ultimate solution to the problems we face, the extremist pressures around the world and threats to all of our nations and sovereignty in general, that problem is not unique to the defense business, to defense professionals, or to any one country. We are united in a common concern over protecting our freedoms, protecting our populations, protecting our way of life, and ensuring that our laws are upheld and our sovereignty is assured. This is a place where we're very interested in an international perspective, and this is a place where we can get to know one another a little bit better and then move forward into our own environments and all contribute in the most appropriate and effective way to a global problem right now that's very serious.
The days have been full. We've had some presentations, about 6 presentations, speakers from the United States, but also in keeping with the philosophy of Sovereign Challenge, speakers from France, Great Britain, and of course Lebanese American and others to give it a full international flavor.
To win a war against an idea, you need to put information or strategic communications or propaganda or whatever you call it at the center of the fight, struggle. Don't call it a war. It's very unhelpful, not least because by calling it a war, you empower terrorists with the label of warriors. and that only encourages more martyrdom operations, as they call it.
The age group of the members of those cells that we are dismantling and fighting, the age group, the social insertion, where they are found, the level of infiltration that they have achieved are the titles of what we or our next generation is going to be up against in the next 10 or 20 years. In the Arab and Muslim world, it's even further.
The highlight, perhaps, of this conference, as the past two conferences, has been the interaction of all the guests. And we've set aside several hours, 2 or 3 hours each day, to devote to this kind of interaction. In small groups, people become comfortable with each other. We have skilled moderators leading the discussions. We mix up the groups regionally, and I think this is part of the strength of the process. So many groups, many conferences you go to are about the Middle East or Africa or Asia, and kind of limited in their scope. But intentionally, because this is a global and international and strategic program, we do mix up the groups. So you have Africans talking to Asians, people from the Middle East talking to people from Latin America. It's a very productive exchange, and people become increasingly more comfortable as the days go on. At the end of the conference, we get together, look at all the notes, put together a report. But even more important, at the end of the conference, we talk about where we go from here.
Frames of reference takes us to the way we communicate. It takes us to an expression of our individual political will as countries and as a group. So we see Sovereign Challenge as an excellent vehicle in attempting to define frames of reference of each of the countries represented here.
We have to tolerate each other's beliefs and respect each other's religions, each other's ideas, traditions, and open our hearts to listen to everybody. We might differ, but we have to have those prerequisites at least to establish a dialogue among us. And I think establishing the initial dialogue is a good step toward finding solutions or having the will to do something.
We can make a lot of efforts in order to struggle with the terrorism, but I think it's more important, as our general from Bangladesh told, to determine the roots and conditions of the creation of the terrorism and terrorism threat, because I think to prevent terrorist recruitments and training is more important. And as doctor many times say, it's more easier to prevent disease than to provide good treatment, because results may vary.
We've had a great exchange of views. We've had some social events. Admiral Olson, the commander of U.S. Special Operations Command, address a group, as did the new commander of Strategic Command, General Chilton. Strategic Command, based in Omaha, is our partner in Sovereign Challenge, and they hosted last year's conference, and we're very happy to host this year's. I think our audience firmly believes that this is their program, their project, and their countries benefit from this kind of collaboration.
We have had a kind of intense communication with different people whom we would never have met, outside Tampa and outside your conference room. I think it's a precious experience.
I don't think anyone dislikes war more than a military professional. The things that we're talking about, I think, are the avenue to success to reduce the pain and suffering of all of our citizens. And it's very important work. And no one nation is going to call the shots. It's an international cooperative effort, which doesn't require we all agree. It doesn't require complete consensus, but it's to our advantage to have close personal relationships and share best practices and good ideas. Our commitment to you is to help facilitate that to the best of our abilities. You've had some great discussions, some great recommendations. The speakers were provocative. Once again, thank you very much for your time and energy. It was an honor to have you all here. Best wishes as we go together in this challenge. Thank you.